I once worked at an institution where I sat on the board, and as I sat there, we made decisions, of course, and one item came up for business that was a little bit difficult. We needed to buy a piece of equipment. Let's just say it was a car, because that'll make it easier for you. We needed to buy this piece of equipment, and we could buy one that was, say, $15,000, or we could buy one that was $30,000. Now, if you buy a car for $15,000, it'll probably come, assuming it's not some sports car or something, it'll probably come with 5 seat belts, right? 2 in the front, 3 in the back. Now they mostly come, right? And if you spend twice that and buy a regular sedan, it's probably going to have 2 seat belts in the front and 5 seat belts in the back, right? Or three in the back, yeah. So you're going to have 5 seat belts either way, right? You're going to have 5 seat belts. If you spend $15,000, it'll carry 5 people, do what it needs to do, right? Or you can spend twice that much money and get 5 seat belts, and it'll carry 5 people and do what it needs to do. It's just got more wow factor, right? So as that came up for a vote, everyone on the board voted to accept the idea of buying this $30,000 car instead of the $15,000 car, except one. I wasn't on that board much longer. Yes. The things you learn when you're young, right? But I thought a lot about Elijah. Think about some of the things Elijah did, right? Think about his life. Think about what he stood for. Take a look with me back in 1 Kings chapter 17. 1 Kings chapter 17. Are you with me? Elijah the Tishbite of the inhabitants of Gilead said to Ahab, and that puts it pretty bluntly, It just sounds like they just happened to be taking a stroll through the park one day, and he just said, "Oh, hey, by the way, Ahab." No. Ahab was the king, and Elisha telling you he was Elisha the Tishbite. They even had to qualify it and tell you where it was, because it wasn't a very big city. This was not a real fancy place. This was not a well-known place. This was kind of out of the way, and so they had to tell you, oh, it's over in Gilead there. And so here is Elijah coming up, and he's talking to the king. How did he get there? Okay, let's put it this way. Imagine this past week if I had decided I'm just going to go down to the Amway Center, and have a little chat with some of the folks who showed up there this week. You know what I'm talking about? If I had just decided I'm going to go talk with the president this week down at the Amway Center, do you imagine that all those guys with all those guns and everything would have said, "No problem, go right on in and see him"? Probably not going to happen, is it? In fact, I probably couldn't even get in to see the governor. I'd be lucky to get in to see the mayor. But he just goes walking straight in to talk to the president, to the king. He walks in unannounced, just barges right in. Do you just barge in on the president? No way. But that's what he did. Just walks right in. That's what I'm talking about, huh? And then verse 2. Check it out. Verse 2 there. When he comes in, he says, "Then the word of the Lord came to him." Oh, That's what I want to have happen to me. Isn't it to you? Isn't that what we want? I want the Lord to just talk to me. This was the Elijah that we know, right? Chapter 18. Look at chapter 18, verse 16. Chapter 18 and verse 16. So here, Elisha has met Obadiah. Obadiah is kind of the chief of staff, the prime minister. And he's just told Obadiah, go do this. Wow. And then he does, Obadiah does. In verse 16 it says, so Obadiah went. He just did what Elisha told him to do. How do you get away with that? Unless you've got a connection with God. Right? And so Obadiah went to meet Ahab and he told him. And so imagine this for a second. Imagine that instead of just walking in to see the king now, instead of just walking in to see the president, imagine that I were to call up the White House and say, tell President Obama to come to my house now. Chances are good they'd trace the call and it'd be somebody else showing up at my house. Right? Nice uniform, little badge. Yeah. But he says, tell Ahab to come and meet me. And in the last part of verse 16 it says, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. The king obeyed. That's not how this is supposed to work, is it? And then look at again, verse 19. Now therefore, send and gather all Israel. Who's he talking to? Who's he giving orders to? The king. Now therefore, send and gather all Israel to me on Mount Carmel. And Ahab just says, yes, sir, and goes and does it. I want to be Ahab, or I want to be Elijah when I grow up, don't you? Wouldn't that be awesome? Just tell you do this. Do it now. How do you get away with that? Unless there's one greater than the king who's telling you so. Right? Unless you've got that connection with God. And so here we are in verse 21. Here he is. Elijah came to all the people and said, how long? How long? How long will you falter between two opinions? Think about this. Here is Elijah. He is persona non gratis. Nobody wants to see this guy. In fact, they've been looking for him for 3 years, trying to get rid of him, right? And suddenly he shows up and starts saying, choose now. Whoa. How do you do that? This is the whole nation. How do you do that? Unless you've got a connection with God. That is incredible. And then verse 27. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 27. And so it was at noon that Elisha mocked them. Who is them? The priests of Baal. Just for interest's sake, how many were there? Hundreds. 450 of these guys. And all the prophets of God are standing there with Elijah. How many were them? 450 against one. And he's mocking them. Wait, these guys wanted to kill him, and he's mocking them. Is this a good idea? Just looking at it from a human point of view, would this be a good idea? How many of you want to go down on the dark streets of a big city some night, whole bunch of guys get around you, they're looking for your wallet, and you start mocking them? Is this a good plan? Probably not, right? And here he is on the top of the mountain in front of the whole nation, 400 of these guys, just one of him, and he says, hey, where's your God? Oh, yeah, he's probably busy, huh? Oh, bummer for you. Now Elijah at the same time here is not mocking them like, neener, neener, my God's better than yours is. No. That's not where we're going with this. He was pointing something out to them, wasn't he? You say you have this God. Why isn't he listening to you? That was the point, wasn't it? But how do you do that? How do you resist even that temptation to go neener, neener if you don't have God? You're supposed to be the guys that ask your God for rain. Where's it been? How do you not have that edge in your voice that tells them that you're just giving them a bad time, but instead telling them that their God is not real? How do you do that unless you have a connection with the true God? And then look again. Here he is in verse 33. Are you with me? In verse 33, and he put the wood in order, right? He's about to make the sacrifice now himself. He cut the bull in pieces. He laid it on the wood, and he said what? Fill 4 water pots with what? With what? Wait. What hadn't happened for 3.5 years? Rain. No rain. Where are we getting this water? Did you notice, Elijah, there's a drought? What's with all the water? Come on, we need this water. Why are you asking for water? I'll tell you why. Because this was the rain god, Baal, they were going to pray to, right? Not even Baal's power of water could stop what the real God was about to do. How do you do that? How do you in the middle of a drought call for 4 barrels of water in the drought? Oh wait, it wasn't just 4, because next verse it says, then he said, do it a second time, and so they did. And he said, do it a third time. So now we're talking 12 barrels of water in the middle of a drought. This is how confident he was of the God that he served. I want to be Elijah, don't you? That's what I'm talking about. Going up there, man, giving it to him, telling him what it's all about, showing him the real God. Yeah, man. Just makes you want to flex, but I don't have anything to flex, you know? It's a bummer when you're skinny, you know? But I want to be like that. And then, the crowning act, verse 38, are you with me? Verse 38. Then the fire of the Lord fell. Oh, man, there you go. This is not just how cool all of this is, but watch this. God answers by fire. Is that put the stamp of approval on what you've done all this time? How could you want for anything more than that? God sending fire on what you just said. Man. No fire. Fire. Fire from heaven. I'm telling you, that's where I want to be when I grow up. There's a people at the end of time that are sent with a message from the Lord. A message that's detailed in chapter 14 of the last book of the Bible. Maybe you've read it once or twice. Beginning with verse 6. Are you with me? Look at these people. Revelation chapter 14, verse 6. Are you with me? And I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to who? Those who dwell on the earth. To whom? Every nation, every tribe, every tongue, every people. Man, this is a worldwide message, isn't it? This is a message that nobody's going to ignore. This is a message that goes out. This is a message that makes a difference, an impact. This is a message with fire. Huh? Look at what they say. Look at what they say there. Whoa, man, watch it. Your pages turn. That's kind of scary. Look at what it says there. Saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment. Yes. Isn't that the message that Elijah gave? The hour of His judgment. There will be no rain except at my word. And there was no rain. Now we're talking, this is a message of judgment. Fear God. Give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment isn't just out there somewhere off in the distance, but it, come on now, has come now, right? This is not later. This is not maybe. This is not watch for it. This is has come. This is a message. Yeah, that Elijah could have preached. This is awesome. Look at the next angel, verse 8. Another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen. Just in case you didn't get it, it's fallen again, right? Here's this message. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. I want to be out there. I want to talk this message. I don't want to beat around the bush, about who this is. Ooh, well, yeah, we'll get. No! Let me just tell it straight. Here's the message. Here's who Babylon is. Let's get real about this. Yeah. And then the third angel. Ooh, yeah. Now we're getting serious. If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark, are you with me in verse 4 or verse 9? On his forehead or in his hand, he himself. Huh? What happens? He himself. Verse 10. Shall drink of the wine of the... Oh. Is that a message that we hear coming out there of judgment? A message that God wanted to bring, right? Yeah, we're bringing it now. So why aren't we out there? Why aren't we out there? Telling the kings, telling the people the truth of God, bringing that judgment hour message. Why aren't we out there calling sin a sin? Right here. It's right here that this starts. It's right here that we begin doing this. Well, if they weren't accepting sin, we wouldn't have a problem because there wouldn't be sin in the camp. If they weren't out there accepting the sin along with the sinner, we could get this work done. Well, if you weren't out there telling people how much God hates them for what they're doing, if you weren't showing it with your voice and with your actions, if you were talking about the God who says to the sinner, why will you die, O Israel? If you were not doing that, if you weren't out there condemning them to hell while they're still alive, maybe we could do this. And we sit there and we throw rocks at each other. Am I in the neighborhood? Let's get real. Let's get real with this, shall we? If we weren't sitting around saying things like, well, those people accepted that lifestyle, and those people who did it, And if we, on the other side, weren't sitting there saying, well, if you weren't condemning, man, it got awful quiet in here. You follow where I'm going with this? We're sitting there sniping at each other. We're sitting there yelling at each other about how neither of us are doing it right, and we're more worried about what we're doing than them people out there dying. Let's not do this. Let's not do this. Let's go back and look at Elijah again. You have a little quote in your bulletin. You have a little quote in your bulletin. Among the mountains of Gilead, east of the Jordan, there dwelt in the days of Ahab a man of what? Faith and prayer. What did Elisha have? I keep getting those names mixed up. What did Elijah have? A connection with God. A connection with God. You with that? Do you see it? A man of faith and prayer whose fearless ministry. How did he have a fearless ministry if he was not a man of faith and prayer? You follow? Whose fearless ministry was destined to check the rapid spread of apostasy in Israel. Far removed from any city of renown and occupying no high station in life, Elijah the Tishbite nevertheless entered upon his mission, confident in God's purpose to prepare the way before him and to give him abundant success. The word of what? Faith and power. I'm talking today about the word of faith and power, yes? That's what I talked about all this time, right? Elisha, faith and power. And the three angels' message, faith and power. But how did he get the faith and the power? It was because he was a man of faith and... You got it. Oh, that is so beautiful. You got it. Exactly. He was a man of faith and prayer. The word of faith and power was upon his lips, and his whole life was devoted to the work of reform. Praise God for reformers, huh? His was the voice of one crying in the wilderness to rebuke sin, press back the tide of evil. And while he came, watch, while he came to the people as a reprover of sin, did not Elijah come as a reprover of sin? Absolutely, yes he did, right? Listen to it. While he came as a reprover of sin, his message offered what? Are we up for that twin challenge? Are we up for that? You see, too often we snipe at each other because one group wants to be the reprovers of sins, the others want to offer the balm of Gilead. Oh, we need to be hard on these people, but we need to give them the balm of Gilead. You see where we go here? And we choose one ditch or the other. You were here on prayer meeting, remember? The devil doesn't care which ditch we fall off of. He does not care. He can have us condemn, and he's good with that because we'll go right along to hell with the ones that we're condemning. Or we can accept the sin as well and go right along to hell with the people that we're accepting. You follow where I'm going with this? But if we're going to represent Elijah correctly, if we're going to give the three angels' message correctly, we need to be giving it by both sides of the equation. We need to offer both. Did Elijah? Yes, he did. Absolutely. Go with me. Back to 1 Kings again. Back to 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 17 again. And Elisha the Tishbite of the inhabitants of Gilead said to Ahab, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, right? Before whom I stand. What does that tell you? That Elijah wasn't worried about the people. He stood in the presence of God. He spent time with God. He was there with God. He had a connection with God, didn't he? He had that connection with God. Verse 2 again. Then the word of the Lord came to him. The word of the Lord doesn't come to us unless we have a connection with him, yes? He's only going to guide us as we are willing to be led by him, yes? We have to know God. God has to know us. We spent a lot of time in Korea. Got to know a lot of people from all over the world because we had people coming to teach English from all sorts of places. Lots and lots of Americans, of course. But we also had people from every place else that speaks English, pretty much. Canada, we had a bunch of Canadians. We had any Canadians here? Canadians with me today? Australians, any Australians? We met some Australians there. British, English, we had it all. We had every kind of different thing. And the weird part is that Patty and I, picked up a bunch of those things too along the way, you know? And so, for example, the British young lady, we were all kids at the time, not kids, we were younger. We heard her always say, whenever someone would ask her how things were, she wanted to say things were great, so she would say, "Just ducky." So my wife picked that one up. We picked it up, and the other day my wife said, actually the treasurer of our conference was passing her and asked her, "How are things going?" And my wife turns to him and says, "Just ducky." You know, he didn't get it because he wasn't in on it. You know, he didn't know how that worked. We picked up things from the Australians. You probably noticed that I say "no worries" way more than I should because that's what they say, you know, and I just picked it up and there it is. And sometimes we've also picked up the habit from the Canadians of saying "a" at the end of a question. You know, it's just one of those things you do. You don't even think about it, right? So my wife, for example, will ask me, "Is it okay? Do you want, you know, or you know, what do you want for breakfast? Will pancakes be okay, eh?" Right? You know, she'll say that to me, and unfortunately, I've gotten into this habit of putting my own personal weirdness on it, right? And so my wife knows me so well, she knows exactly how I will answer that question. How would I answer that question?
Yes, B.
Yeah, I'll answer it yes, B, as though, anyway. So the point here is that she knows me just like that. Do we know God that well? If Jesus starts a sentence, could we finish it? Could we finish a sentence that Jesus started? Would we be speaking so much like him that if we started a sentence, he could finish it for us? Do we walk with Jesus like that? Do we have an Elijah connection? That's the question. Elijah talked with God. God talked with him. Then the word of the Lord came to him. I want that. I want that. I want to be like Elijah. I want that connection with God like Elijah had. You see, as Elijah came to Ahab in 1 Kings 18:18. It's not just that Elijah was responding in kind, we often put a little edge to our voice as we go into these things. Let me read this 17 and 18 for you and see if this sounds familiar. Then it happened when Ahab saw Elijah that Ahab said to him, "Is that you, O troubler of Israel?" And I suspect Ahab may have thought something like that. Don't you think? And then what we do is we answer with verse 18. Like this. "I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house." Right? We put that little edge. You feel the edge there? Okay. I'm a character. I get it. Little over the top. But I'd prefer to think, as Jesus did, we're told in the spirit of prophecy, as he uttered his denunciations, there were tears in his voice. Do you think Elijah's heart didn't bleed for his people as they struggled for 3.5 years and died as a result of the drought? Do you suppose his heart didn't bleed for his people? "I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house." In that, what was the crux? What was it in? It wasn't just that he was the troubler and he's going to get him back. Why? In that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord and have followed the Baals. Oh, why would you follow one who has no mind? Why would you follow one who has no thoughts? Why would you follow one who cannot help you? Please follow the Lord. It is a connection with God that Elijah is seeking for. Come back, come back, come back to the God who answers prayers. That's what he was pleading for. It wasn't just going to be, "You're going to burn, buddy." That wasn't his attitude, man. That's not his attitude. His attitude was one of pleading. Yes, you've messed up, but come back, come back, come back. When we have people in the well, we don't disagree with others in the church, but you know, when we disagree, what? Do we plead with them, or are we indignant? If we don't have that connection with God ourselves, how easy it is to fall into that trap. Wow. Look at him up on the mountain. Look at him in verse 21. "And Elijah came to all the people and said, 'How long?'" You remember how I read it a few minutes ago? Oh, let me read it a little different, with a different tone to the voice now. "How long? How long? Please, how long will you falter between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him." What is your senses telling you? What has the last 3.5 years told you? If it's God, shouldn't you be following him? If you still think after 3.5 years that it's Baal who can't do anything for you in 3.5 years, then I guess you should follow him. You see the difference in how we usually couch these things? It's very exciting to couch it as, right? That's pretty exciting. But is that what Jesus would do? Are we trying to hurt people or save them? Notice what the thing was all about. It was about, who do you follow? Who do you have a connection with? Do you connect with God? Do you have an Elijah connection? That's what it was really about. That's where the reality is. That's what he was trying to do. He was trying to bring them back to a connection. And look at his prayer. Look at his prayer there on verses 36 and 37. 36 and 37. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, this is his prayer now, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, O God. Do you see the connection this man had with his God? That's what this is all about. It's about love relationship. That's what it's all about. That love relationship that will spring forward into obedience to the commandments. Yes? That's what we're looking for. We're not trying to just convince people to keep the commandments for no reason at all. Just because God said it and I got to do it and that's that. No. It's because there's a God there who loves us so much and we love Him. And so we obey the commandments. This is about love. If the commandments don't represent love, then we might as well just join the Pharisees. Because they had it together if it's not about love. Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known. Let it be known. That's not just know. Are you with me? That's not just know, it's know. Huh? It's the kind of knowledge like, I can tell you how tall my wife is. I can tell you what day she was born. I can tell you what color her hair is. Yeah. I can tell you lots of facts about her. But I can also tell you about her heart because I know her. And she knows me. Knowing the heart is a whole different ballgame than knowing the head, right? Yeah. Same kind of thing there. This kind of knowing is knowing with the heart. Let it be known this day that you are God. In other words, he's pleading with God to give them a relationship with God. That's what he's asking for. He's asking for them to make a connection to God. You see, Elijah had a message of connection. What about the three angels? Are those a message of connection too? We like to focus sometimes on the fear, the judgment, the whole thing that's going on there, right? But let's go back and look at it again. Revelation 14, verse 6. Then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having what? The three angels are supposed to be preaching what? The everlasting gospel. Notice how quickly I passed over that before? Did you notice? No, because I just went right on by. I slid right on by that because I was trying to convince you with just half a verse. Remember we talked about that at prayer meeting? You see, if we read the whole verse, it's not only that the hour of his judgment has come. Is that part of the three angels' message? Yeah, that's the first angel. The hour of his judgment has come. If we don't tell that, we are not preaching the message. But why are we telling them that the message, or why are we telling them that the hour of his judgment has come, except that we want to save people from it? We want to love them enough that they don't have to suffer that judgment, yes? While there's still time, while they can still make a choice. They're senseless if there's no time to make a choice. The only reason for giving a judgment hour message is so that people will turn and live, isn't it? We have a message, brothers and sisters, that is the everlasting gospel. A God who is so mind-blowing that he would come down here, become dirt, flesh and blood like me and get up on a wooden cross and allow other little dirt particles to pin him up there until he was dead? Is that a God of love or what? That's Jesus. That's Jesus coming here, giving us the everlasting gospel. Now we tell it to others. That's our message. And look at verse 8, the second angel. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Why are we giving this message except that we want people to not be part of the fall? There's no other reason. It's ridiculous to walk by someone who's stuck in the snow. Thank you. To go by someone in the snow and say, tough luck. You should have been driving more careful. That doesn't help, does it? It doesn't help. The only thing that helps is to get out of the car and start shoveling too, right? That's why we're here. Not to just go by and say, hey, you're in the ditch. Thanks. I figured that much out. Why would we say to people, Babylon is fallen, if we don't want them to get unstuck? Right? Exactly that. And the third angel, again, if anyone worships the beast. Wait. If anyone what? Worships. This is about worship. This is about connection. Worship is connection, isn't it? This is about connection with God. This is about not connecting with God if you're worshiping the beast. Please, they're saying, connect with God. That's what this message is all about. It's connection beginning to end. And just in case you were wondering, God's last day people whom Elijah represents, right, are a people of connection. Look at verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Patience, what? Do we exhibit patience with others that we think are, what's that word? I'm right and they're, what was that word? Mistaken. Yeah, there you go. Here is the patience of the saints. Where do we get that kind of patience except a connection with God? An Elijah connection with God. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and have no relationship with Jesus. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Brothers and sisters, we've got to have that connection or we don't have a message. We need that connection. I need a connection with Patty if I'm going to remain married with her, right? Yeah. And I appreciate the board this week allowing me to make that a little stronger week by week. Thank you. I wonder, as Elijah went into Ahab, gave that message and then walked out, I wonder if Ahab, once he recovered from the astonishment, right, went, well, I'm the king of not Assyria. I'm not the king of Egypt. I'm the king of Israel. Hello, I've already got a connection with God. Duh, buddy. Did he say that kind of thing in his head, maybe? Meaning, this message doesn't apply to me. I'm already in. I'm already in Israel. Not only am I in Israel, I'm the king of Israel. Clearly, I've got it all together already. Now, if I were to give this message to some, infidels, they might go, yeah, that could possibly, maybe apply to me. But if I gave it to some, other denomination, I wonder if they'd feel the same way, that maybe it could apply to them. But of course, it doesn't apply to Adventists, right? Because we have the truth. We've got it all together. We don't need this, do we? Or do we? Do we need a connection? Or is just knowing the message enough? All I need, hey, I got the truth that I'm supposed to preach. That's all I really need, right? I don't really need to have anything else because I know the truth. I live the truth. I have vegan stuff delivered to me, man. Right? I'm cool. I got it. Right? I don't need anything else. Or do we? Do we need a connection with God? I'd venture to say that if we don't have that connection with God, we really don't have that message. Because that message that we're to preach, that message that goes to every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, is a message of connection. Our closing hymn, number 598. 598. Are we really looking for Jesus to come? Are we watching, saints,